Okay, call your next witness.
State call is Dr. Sullivan.
Raise your right hand for me. Do you swear affirm this testimony you give to the court and the truth, the whole truth, so help you?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat and to the mic. State spell your name for the court.
Karen Sullivan, Karen Sullivan.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sullivan.
Good afternoon.
Can you please tell us how you are employed in?
I'm the Chief Medical Examiner for the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office here in Atlanta.
And how long have you held that position as Chief Medical Examiner?
Since spring of 2021, I believe.
Before the spring of 2021, were you employed with the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office?
I was
And what was the position that you held at that time?
the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner.
Can you tell us a little bit about your education background and training to allow you to be the now Chief Medical Examiner here in Fulton County?
I have an undergraduate degree in zoology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a master's degree in anatomy from the University of Georgia. And after getting my master's degree, I was a high school teacher here in Fulton County for about 5 years before going to medical school at Morehouse School of Medicine here in Atlanta. And then after graduating from Morehouse, I did a residency in anatomic and clinical pathology at Emory, and then an additional year of forensic pathology fellowship training at the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office in conjunction with Emory.
And can you tell us what are your responsibilities as the Chief Medical Examiner are in 2020, what were your duties and responsibilities as a Deputy Medical Examiner?
Actually, in the last half of 2020, I was the interim chief medical examiner. Our job is to determine the cause and manner of death of people who die of sudden, unexpected, or unexplained causes, people who die as a result of trauma, either self-inflicted or inflicted by another person. In addition, as the interim chief and now chief medical examiner, I'm also the department head for that department, so I have a number of administrative duties.
Over the course of your career, how many autopsies would you say you have performed?
I've either performed myself or supervised pathology residents and fellows, at least 3,000 autopsies.
How many of those, if you know, involve gunshot wounds?
Probably between 10 and 20%.
And have you ever had occasion to testify as an expert in regards to any autopsies that you performed?
I have.
About how many times have you testified as an expert?
More than 100.
And each of those times were you qualified and considered as an expert?
I was.
Have you ever failed to qualify as an expert?
No.
In what field were you qualified in as an expert?
Anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology.
At this time, it's safe to tender Dr. Sullivan as an expert.
Any objection?
Absolutely not.
Okay, she's so qualified.
Can you talk us through in regards to when you were doing an autopsy that involves a gunshot wound? I'm going to ask you a question. What is a penetrating wound?
Penetrating means that the bullet entered the body but then stayed there and did not exit.
And if it's not penetrating, what is the other type of gunshot wound considered to be?
Perforating, meaning there's both an entrance and an exit wound.
In a penetrating gunshot wound, are you able to, I believe you said, possibly recover the projectile that causes the injury?
Yes.
And are you able to determine the path in which that gun bullet would have taken or that projectile would have taken within the body?
Yes.
Do you discuss that in your autopsy report?
Yes.
Are you able to determine the range of fire when you are doing an autopsy involving a gunshot wound?
We're able to classify it, yes.
And what is that? How do you classify that?
Well, you classify the range of fire based on the presence or absence of gunpowder residue, either on the skin or within the soft tissue.
Is that the terminology that you use, foot or stippling?
Yes.
And I believe, did you have the occasion to perform an autopsy the victim, in this case, Secoriea Turner.
I did.
Do you recall when that was that you performed that autopsy?
It was on Monday, July the 6th, 2020, starting at 9:30 in the morning.
When we talked about the path, or is it considered to be the path or the trajectory that the projectile takes in the body,
Yes.
how do you determine, what position do you look at, or should the body be in when you're talking about what path that it takes within the body?
We describe a decedent or deceased individual as being in the anatomic position so that they're standing facing you with their palms facing out.
With their feet down, palms facing out?
Correct, yes.
And why do you do it in that manner to describe the trajectory that the projectile took inside the person's body?
Well, one, it's a uniform standard way of describing a projectile's pathway. The other is a particular gunshot wound trajectory can be the same despite a number of different positions that a person's body is in when they are shot. So I describe it to students as a game of Twister. You can still have your hand touching the yellow dot and your right foot touching the red dot, but how you are in relationship to those dots can be different with your hand and feet still being in the same position.
When you consider the path or trajectory in regards to that projectile, are you talking about what's happening inside the body or outside the body?
Inside the body.
And is that because the body is moving? Can that, when it takes on that gunshot, let me ask you another question. Are you able to determine how the body is moving or positioned at the time that that gunshot occurs?
Not in detail, no.
And I'm going to show you what's in the March of States Exhibit 1.
Thank you.
And do you recognize States 140?
Yes, it's a copy of Secorea's autopsy report.
And is that the report that you completed after doing the autopsy involving Secoriea Turner?
It is.
Have any additions, deletions, manipulations been made to that report?
No.
And does that report contain your findings from the autopsy that you performed on Secoriea Turner?
It does.
Save it as the state's number 140 be admitted into evidence.
Any objection? No objection, Your Honor. It's admitted.
Besides the report, do you do anything else to memorialize the autopsy that you performed?
We take photographs, or photographs are taken both before the autopsy and during the autopsy to demonstrate the findings that the doctor is seeing.
And I'm going to show you what's in the March of States 141 through 150.
I do recognize them.
How do you recognize?
They're copies of photographs that were taken during Secorea's autopsy.
And do they fairly and accurately depict the autopsy that was performed on Secoriea Turner?
They do.
I'd ask the State's Exhibit 140 through 150 be admitted into evidence.
Any objection to those?
No objection, although I would ask if there have been provisions made to preserve a degree of dignity.
We've talked to, it will not be shown, we're saying we're live streaming, but it will not be shown via the live stream. I believe we asked the live stream be turned off.
Okay, it's time then to end the live stream. Thank you.
Cameraman has agreed not to show the screens during this.
I couldn't hear what you just said.
Cameraman has agreed not to show
Oh,
the screens during this portion of Dr. Sullivan's testimony.
okay. Thank you.
We're going to start with State's Exhibit 141. If you could tell us what is contained in State's 141, Dr. Sullivan.
This is a photograph of the Fulton County Medical Examiner Center identification tag that was attached to Secorea's disaster or body bag. And on it is written her name with her last name first, her age, race, and sex, And in the top right-hand corner, here is her medical examiner case number, 20-1357.
States 142. What's the PT?
This is a photograph of Secoriea as taken from her right-hand side as she was received in our office.
And states 143.
It's a corresponding photograph from her left-hand side.
Now, during the course of your autopsy, one of the things that you look at as to whether or not there was any medical intervention taken prior to you receiving the body.
Yes.
And in this case, were you able to determine if there was any medical intervention that was taken on behalf of Secoriea Turner prior to her coming to the medical examiner's office?
Yes, there was.
Can you tell us about that medical intervention that was taken?
There's in her mouth an endotracheal tube to help her breathe. There's an IV or intravascular catheter in her left antecubital fossa or the crook of her left elbow. There's a similar catheter in her right leg, and those are to provide fluids for resuscitation. There's a surgical incision across her chest that was made by the doctors in order to try to examine any areas of injury that hopefully they could repair to help save her life and or to give cardiac massage. In addition, there's a piece of gauze here on the front of her neck that covers a tracheostomy incision where an incision has been made into her neck in case an airway was needed to be introduced into the trachea if she could not be intubated through the mouth.
Were you able to determine from your examination whether or not a tracheotomy tube had to be placed inside of her neck?
No, there was no incision in the trachea itself, just in the soft tissue.
And states exhibit 144. What are we looking at here?
This is a facial identification photograph taken of Secoriea. It's one of the standard photographs that have taken of decedents in our office. And here in the front of her neck, now that that gauze has been removed, is the tracheotomy incision. So this is a similar facial identification photograph now with a placard on Secorea's chest that has her case number.
And I understand you said that is a Fulton County medical examiner's case number. What do those numbers mean?
Well, 20 means that Secoria's death was reported in the year 2020, and her death was number 1,357 that was reported to our office that year.
In regards to when Secoriea came into the medical examiner's office, do you make a determination about her health and well-being prior to you starting your autopsy during the course of your autopsy?
Yes, that's part of the external examination.
And what were your findings in regards to that external examination?
That Secoriea was well-nourished and well-developed and externally had no medical issues that were identified.
States 146. What are we observing here in States 146?
So this is a photograph of Secorea's back showing this large gunshot wound on the right side of her upper back.
Does that gunshot, the size of that gunshot wound indicate anything to you?
Well, it's suggestive of an intermediary object because of the size of the wound, that the bullet passed through some other object before striking her back and was tumbling and therefore creating a larger entrance wound than might otherwise be seen.
States 147. And what are we looking at in States 147?
So in this photograph, now Secoriea is lying face down on the examination table and her back has been cleaned. And again, it's this large entrance wound on the right side of her upper back. And in addition, there's a contusion or bruise that's at the edge of the wound.
Does that indicate anything to you, that contusion or bruise?
It's suggestive that her back may have been against something firm and caused the movement of the bullet through her back, caused her back to strike whatever she may have been sitting in, or some part of the vehicle to strike her back.
You said vehicle. Did you know where Secoriea was at the time that she was shot in the back?
We had the information that she was a passenger in a vehicle.
And are you able, we talked about the path earlier, can you tell us about the path that this projectile kind of took throughout Secoria's body?
Before the x-ray of homicide victims, our office does x-rays on a person's body to identify where any retained projectiles may be. And in Secoria's case, there was a small piece of projectile on the right side of her chest and a larger piece on the left side of the chest. In Secoria's case, the projectile moved from her back towards her front, from her right towards her left, and upward. It passed through the right side of her back, the right scapula, which is the shoulder blade, the back of the right fifth and sixth ribs, the right lung, the right mainstem bronchus, which is the branch of the trachea that goes to the right lung, the pulmonary artery and aorta, which are the large blood vessels that leave the top of the heart to distribute blood to the lungs and the remainder of the body, respectively. It went through her thymus gland, which is a small gland in chest that's especially prominent in children, that's responsible for making white blood cells. The anterior or front aspect of her left first rib, and then lodged in the left pectoralis major muscle, or the left large chest muscle. A small fragment was recovered from Secoria's right lung. And the passage of this bullet through Secoria's body caused rib fractures, hemopericardium, which means blood in the sac where the heart is, because of the passage through the pulmonary artery and aorta, even though the bullet didn't pass through the heart itself. And bilateral hemothoraces, which means blood in either side of the chest cavity.
What would be the natural and probable consequences of such an injury?
Well, with that degree of blood loss, then that blood is not available in Secoria's body to supply oxygen to her internal organs, most importantly, her brain and her heart itself. So in terms of her heart, that lack of blood flow can cause an abnormal heart rhythm or dysrhythmia, which means that the heart's not beating in a coordinated fashion, and therefore blood's not circulating to the internal organs. And of course, the lack of blood flow to the brain can cause brain death. This is a closer view of the entrance wound on the right side of Secoria's back.
What is that marker indicating that is on her back?
This is a ruler that has her case number on it so that anyone else who looks at the photographs can get an idea of the size of the wound because of the presence of the ruler.
And are we able to see that abrasion that you were talking about a little bit better in stage 148?
Yes. So right at the edge of the wound, this whiter area is the subcutaneous tissue that is exposed because of the passage of the bullet into the body. And that's called an abrasion. and abrasions are most commonly seen with entrance wounds.
And you talked about fragments, the projectile going in, if it's moving, it's going through the body, it's breaking apart. Is that uncommon or unusual for that to occur?
It's not uncommon, no.
In the State's Exhibit 149? Is that just a closer view of what we've been talking about?
It is.
In the State's Exhibit 150? What are we looking at in the State's Exhibit 150?
These are the projectile fragments that were recovered from Secorea's body.
And going back, we don't have to go back to State's Exhibit 149. Would there have been any medical intervention that would have caused that gunshot wound to be the size that it was, or
No.
was it just purely the bullet tumbling as it's entering into her body? I guess it's like a spiral, it's just winding up and making it bigger as it enters inside of her.
Well, or instead of the spiral, it's tumbling.
And States 150, were you able to tell, first of all, I stopped myself, you probably answered me. What are we looking at in States Exhibit 150?
These are the projectile fragments that were recovered from Secorea's body.
And were you able to make any indication about the caliber of weapon that projectile came from at all?
No.
What do you do with that projectile once it has been removed?
So once it's photographed, it's sealed in a plastic evidence box and then placed in a locked receptacle in our office before our office colleagues transfer it to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation for analysis.
And I'm showing what's been marked as States Exhibit 151. Recognize States Exhibit 151.
Yes, I do recognize it. It's a plastic evidence box that has the projectile fragments recovered from Secoriea, and within the box is this label that I've labeled torso with my initials.
And that is the projectile that was removed from Secoriea that was autopsy.
Yes.
I'd ask the States Exhibit 151 be able to testify.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Dr. Sullivan, were you able to make a determination as to the cause of death of Secoriea Turner?
Yes.
And what was that cause of death?
Gunshot wound of the back.
And were you able to make a determination as to the manner of death?
Yes.
And what was that manner of death?
Homicide.
Nothing further.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sullivan.
Good afternoon.
It's always good seeing you, Dr. Sullivan.
Good to see you too.
I'm just going to ask you a few brief questions, I think.
Are you going to be looking at photographs during her testimony?
No.
Okay, so we can resume the stream.
We talked a bit about trajectory. And if I recall your testimony, the trajectory is right to left, low to high, back to front.
Correct.
So, and I believe you indicated that you were given information that that young girl was sitting in a car, correct?
Correct.
And you also testified about a wound on the back that is consistent with the back being against a firm surface, correct?
That is correct.
Would the seat be such, potentially at least, such a firm surface?
It could be, yes.
And you charted to some extent, not to some extent, you expertly charted the path of that bullet internally, correct?
Yes.
And was there any damage to, well, I'll withdraw that. There's a section in your report that
Musculoskeletal.
Musculoskeletal. And you did not indicate anything in that musculoskeletal section that appeared abnormal, correct?
Abnormally formed?
Correct.
Correct.
Or you didn't note any defects in the rib, other than there's some damage to the rib, correct?
If I can look at the report. No, I simply said that the skeletal muscles are symmetrical.
There is nothing indicative of, for example, that projectile hitting the scapula and ricocheting, correct?
Well, that information about the scapula is under the evidence of acute injury section on page 4 of the report.
The scapula, and that's what, that flat V-shaped bone, sort of shoulder blade bone?
It is.
It's not shattered or anything, is it?
Well, the projectile went through it, but it was still in that same outline of a scapula.
And so, you didn't detect any drastic, I'll withdraw that, you didn't detect anything to suggest an irregular path within the body, is that correct?
I'm not sure what you mean by irregular.
Versus a straight line. The path was somewhat of a straight line, correct?
Well, there was both vertical deviation and right-left deviation.
But nothing indicative of a full-scale 180-degree change in direction, correct?
No, that's correct.
And as you indicate, and I am going to, and from where, were you told, were you given any indication of where a potential shooter or shooters were?
No.
Well, as you sit right where you are sitting, and if this is a car with the driver's side facing you, based on what you have determined to be a rightward, a right to left, low to high, back to front trajectory, from where you're sitting right now, and assuming again the back is against the seat at firm surface, that would not be consistent with that path, isn't that correct?
That is correct.
And with the path being upward, that would be suggestive of the shooter, as it were, taking a lowered stance. Is that fair to say?
That's a possibility.
Not only is it a possibility, I guess, as a scientist, that would be a reasonable possibility, correct? Or you may use those words interchangeably. That would be reasonable, correct?
It would be reasonable.
And to some extent, or are you capable of weighing reasonable alternatives if presented?
Some alternatives are more reasonable than others.
Based on your testimony of the back being against the firm surface and the trajectory being right to left, low to high, back to front, would it be more reasonable that someone sitting at prosecution table would be the shooter rather than someone sitting where you're standing?
Assuming that the person being shot is sitting as you are now.
And let's make that assumption. So making that assumption, it would be more reasonable that the shooter would be to the right side, correct?
Correct.
Or it would also be reasonable that the shooter could be more toward the back, but taking more of a kneeling or squatting position. Isn't that correct?
That's a possibility.
In terms of relativeness of possibilities, that would be a greater possibility than a person, a stationary person, sitting where you're sitting, correct?
Correct. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Sullivan, that bruising that you saw, could that come, before that body would have to be up on a smooth surface at the time that the bullet wound went in? Could it come after she's been shot and leaned up against something?
It could be if her body recoils with enough force to strike the seat again.
If there's a seatbelt stuck behind her as she's being shot and tugging going on, trying to get that seatbelt off, could that cause those bruises that we saw?
That could, yes.
And if all the defects and shots that entered into that car on the driver's side, nothing from the right side, would it be fair to say that the gunshots that came into that car and shot and killed Secoriea came from the driver's side?
But object to the mischaracterization of evidence, Your Honor. There is evidence of 2 shots in the rear of the vehicle.
I can pull out the photographs.
I think it would be a good idea to do that.
Show you State's Exhibit 13. Before I start, are you familiar with what bullet holes may look like in the car on the driver's side versus the
Right, I don't know if the state
passenger
has
side?
withdrawn its previous question, but there's still an objection on the table. I don't know what's.
I'm showing her the photographs.
You're rephrasing your question.
Yes.
Okay.
I was just kind of setting it up. Are you familiar with the driver's side and the passenger side of the vehicle?
Yes.
If you can look at State's Exhibit number 13, are you able to see defects in State's Exhibit number 13?
Yes.
If you could please select that. If you could pull out, is that the driver's side or the passenger side of the vehicle?
The driver's side.
State's Exhibit 14. And that's 2, right?
Correct.
16, I'm sorry, you could zoom in. Are you able to see any defects in State's Exhibit 16?
Yes.
If you could please circle that up. Are you able to see any other defects? And so, to be fair, the one closest to the driver's door, would that be the same as the defect that you circled in State's Exhibit 13?
It may have been.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna go to the back end. Are we on the passenger side or the driver's side?
The driver's side.
How many defects did you note on the passenger back seat area?
I'm sorry.
How many defects did you notice on the back passenger on the driver's side?
I'm sorry. Okay. I apologize. I got confused with. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So now we're up to 6 defects.
Correct.
2 in the front panel, 2 in the back panel, 3 in the back panel and 1 in the back bumper area, all on the driver's side. Would that be fair to say?
That is correct.
And then what part of the car are we looking at in State's Exhibit 20?
The back, primarily the driver's side.
And if you could circle any defects you noticed on there.
I'm not sure if this is one there. So here, sorry, let me erase these. There, not sure if that's one in the glass. That's, I believe I had circled that, but I'm not sure now if that's an actual defect or a scrape.
But at least, how many would you say in the back trunk area of that vehicle?
2, possibly 3, and then one more here is 4.
And what side of the car are we looking at here in State's Exhibit 26?
The passenger side.
And I'm gonna ask Mr. Abadi to zoom in, if you could circle if you see any defects on the right side of that vehicle at all.
I don't see anything that I can definitively say is a gunshot wound here, but I can't tell if some of these specks are dirt or paint or actual defects.
You're familiar with APD having a crime scene check?
Yes,
And their job is to go out and take photographs of any defects that they may see in relationship to the investigation of the case?
yes,
Would it be fair to say if they didn't find any,
Objection leading.
It is leading.
would it be fair to say
Objection leading.
would they be the individuals to determine defects in the car in regards to a closer image?
yes,
Now, Mr. Ravis talked to you about from low to high. Does what's going on inside the car affect how that bullet would be entering into Secoria's
Objection
body?
outside the scope of her expertise, Your Honor. Pathologist, mechanic, outside.
Okay, let's hear your question, and then I'll decide before you answer. Please, doctor.
With what's going on with Sequoia, what she's doing inside that car at the time that those 8 shots are coming into it, affect the path of that bullet as it enters into her body?
I think she can answer that.
Oh, right, right. No objection to that question, Your Honor.
Okay.
yes,
So if she is moving, jumping up and down, trying to dodge bullet shots, are you going to get a different path of her body?
Objection leading.
Well, I think it's just a very specific question. Go ahead.
yes,
If she's leaning over trying to get out of the seatbelt, is that going to affect the path of that bullet inside of her body?
it could, yes,
Would that affect the low, the high, the left, the right, the back, the front?
yes.
Nothing, right?
Recross?
Let's, sort of, I don't know the technical term, but let's, I think what the state indicated was if a person is jumping and turning, perhaps at the same time, but that, of course, a person's position inside a car would affect the trajectory, correct?
That is correct.
Although again, it was determined, or your testimony was that there was a firm, the back at some point at least appeared to be against a firm surface, correct?
That is correct.
And let's say a person, to the extent a person is possible while sitting in a seatbelt, jumps up and down. Does vertical motion impact left and right?
Well, it's not, the movement of a person is going to be in 3 dimensions throughout space. So I don't look at a person moving simply in one plane as opposed to all three, as they may be interacting with another person or being assaulted or shot.
So if a person is seated and are in this position, but if they're elevated a few inches higher, that would not impact left and right, would it?
No, that would impact the vertical.
The vertical, but not the horizontal.
Correct.
Further questions?
So that would affect the low to high.
Depending on where the projectile is coming from, but also that's assuming that there's no firm object within the body that is being struck. And in Secorea's case, the bullet hit multiple ribs and her right shoulder blade, which you can reasonably expect would alter the pathway of the bullet.
If she is leaning over, is that going to affect the pathway?
It could.
So let's, as the state demonstrated, leaning in that position, that would not change left and right, correct?
Well, what it can.
Position the state, I apologize, the position the state just demonstrated, leaning in this position, if that person who's firing is in your area, that would not impact left to right, would it?
What it can do is to bring parts of her body in terms of the bones into the pathway of the bullet. Because again, a person's not moving simply in one plane, but in three. Even if the majority of the movement is left or right or up or down. So that can bring the bony structures that may not be impacted by a bullet into the pathway of the bullet because of the change of position.
And having said that, with the bullet entering, as your testimony has indicated, on the right side of the back, that would make such a maneuver fairly difficult, correct?
To go from right to left?
Right, while the back is against a firm seat.
It's still a possibility.
In terms of relative possibilities, the most reasonable of those possibilities, based on all the evidence we have, is that the shooter was not on the left side of that car, correct?
Well, given the fact that the gunshot wounds are on the left side of the car and none were on the right, as a person of science, then I can assume that the bullet that entered Secoria's body entered from the left side of the car.
Or, isn't it also correct, there are two bullets, defects in the back of the car, correct?
That is correct.
And the bullets could have entered the back of that car also, correct?
Right, from the left side back of the car, yes.
Thank you. No more questions.
If the car is moving and the shooter is stationary, at some point would that shooter be in the back of the car?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Can she be excused?
No objection.
No, from the state, Your
Thank you.
Okay, ready to call your next witness?
I'm sorry. Ms. Van Holm.
My name is Sarah. That's Sarah with an H. And my last name is Van Holm. That's VanHolm, and that's 2 words.
Good afternoon, Ms. Van Holm.
Good afternoon.
If you could please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you are employed.
I am currently employed with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in the Division of Forensic Science as a firearms examiner.
And how long have you held that position?
Since July of 2017, so a little over 8 years.
And what are your duties and responsibilities as at the GBI?
So as a firearms examiner, primarily we determine if a bullet or a cartridge case was fired from a particular firearm or not. If no firearm is submitted, we can determine if a group of cartridge cases or a group of bullets was fired from the same firearm, and potentially provide a list of firearms in which they were fired from. We also perform services in serial number restoration and muzzle to target distance determination.
What does that last part mean?
Muzzle to target distance determination.
And what does that mean? From the muzzle to how far, I guess, yes, from the muzzle to the actual target?
Yes, so typically it's going to be clothing. We are looking at the concentration of the gunpowder residues on clothing. And yes, it's the distance from the muzzle of the firearm to the object itself.
Is that the slip or sniffling that possibly the ME looks for to determine the range as well?
It can be if it's on skin.
And can you tell us a little bit about your background and your training that allowed you to hold this position with the GBI?
Yes, so I have a bachelor's degree in biology from the University of North Georgia. Prior to being employed with the GBI, I was a operations manager for a small firearms manufacturing company. I was a certified firearms instructor, and I was also a professional competitive shooter. Upon being employed with the GBI, I completed a 14-month training program to become a firearms examiner, and that was followed by 7 months of supervised casework. I have been certified as an armorer for multiple firearms manufacturers. I have attended multiple conferences and conventions that are firearms examiner related and just firearms related. And I'm also a member of the Association of Firearm and Toolmark Examiners as well.
And have you previously testified as an expert in the field of firearm examination?
Yes, I have.
And have you, about how many times have you done that?
I believe this would be my 83rd time.
At any time have you not been qualified as a firearms examiner?
No.
At this time, the state would ask that Ms. Van Holm be tendered into evidence as a firearm examiner expert.
Any objection? Okay, she's so qualified.
Can you kind of describe the process that you go through when you receive evidence for purposes of examination, specifically firearms?
Yes. So what we are looking at as firearms examiners are the repeating patterns of markings that are formed on the different components of a cartridge during the firing process of a firearm. And those markings are formed during the manufacture of that firearm. And I do have a demonstrative if I'm able to use it. It's a
Have you seen
cartridge.
it? Okay.
How marked as state's exhibit? As state's exhibit. And as they're doing that, can you kind of give us, because we use different terminology in regards when we're talking about firearms. What is, and I don't know if you can
Depends on what the question is.
what's a cartridge case?
Yes, that would help.
We'd ask that it just continue for demonstrative purposes.
No objection for demonstrative purposes.
It's so admitted.
Okay. So as firearms examiners, what we are looking at are the repeating patterns of markings that are imparted on the different components of what we call a cartridge during the firing process of a firearm. So a cartridge is a single unit of unfired ammunition. It's composed of 4 main parts. Your main housing is going to be your cartridge case, sometimes referred to as a shell casing. In the mouth of that cartridge case is going to be your bullet or your projectile. Inside of that cartridge case is going to be your gunpowder or your smokeless powder. And then on the base of that cartridge is going to be what's called a primer. Kind of looks like a button. So when the trigger is pulled on a firearm, it releases what's called a firing pin. That firing pin is going to dimple that primer on the back of that cartridge. And what that does is it creates a rapid gas expansion inside of that cartridge case. That rapid gas expansion actually dislodges this bullet from the mouth of the cartridge case and sends it traveling down the barrel of the firearm, where that projectile is going to pick up markings from the barrel of that firearm, from the rifling of that firearm. Well, because of equal and opposite reactions, as that bullet is being pushed down the barrel of the firearm, this cartridge case is actually slammed against the breech face of the firearm. It's also expanding slightly inside the chamber of that firearm. All of these interactions with that firearm are creating markings from that firearm to the cartridge case and to the projectile that we as firearms examiners will receive as evidence, the bullet and the cartridge cases, to be able to examine and look at those patterns of markings.
And is that the same mechanism that is used in any type of firearm?
So as far as the actual firing process, it can change depending on the type of firearm, but overall, the interactions are going to be pretty similar.
If we were discussing an AR-15, what was the mechanism of that when you're firing a cartridge case or a live round out of an AR-15?
Yeah, so that's a semi-automatic type rifle. And that cycle of fire would be very similar to that. So when the trigger is pulled on an AR-15 firearm, it's going to dimple that primer. It's going to cause that rapid gas expansion that's going to send the projectile down the barrel of the firearm. This cartridge case is actually going to hit what's called the bolt of an AR-15, and that's going to cycle the firearm. When the bolt comes backwards, it's going to pull that cartridge case out of the chamber and eject it from the firearm. So that's how an AR-15 is going to work similarly.
And the ejection of those cartridge casings, how does that occur in an AR-15?
So once the cartridge is fired inside the chamber of the firearm, that bolt on the AR-15 is actually going to retract, which is going to pull that cartridge case out of the chamber, kind of grabs it like a claw, pulls it out of the chamber, and then there is a mechanism on the bolt called an ejector, and that's going to hit that cartridge case and send it out of the ejection port or that opening on the side of the firearm.
And when that cartridge casing comes out of the AR-15, can it just go anywhere? Is there a particular path of travel that it generally takes?
So typically, because the ejection port is on the right side of the firearm, it's going to go to the right and to the rear of the shooter.
I'm going to show you what's been marked and triggered into state's evidence as 60M. And it is still locked and safe.
Thank you.
Are you familiar what's in State's Exhibit 60M?
Yes, I am.
Is that an AR-15 that we kind of were talking about before?
This is an AR-15 style firearm. That is correct.
Are there different styles of AR-15s?
So AR-15 is a type of operating system for a firearm. They can fire different types of calibers, but generally the operating system is going to be the same. It's a rotating bolt. Ooh. It's a rotating bolt gas-operated firearm.
How many rounds does a general AR-15 hold or carry?
That's going to depend on the magazine that you use in it.
Is there different magazines that can go into that weapon?
Yes.
What's the least amount of rounds that one would hold?
You can put one cartridge in here without a magazine and fire it, or you can get any number of magazines that will hold different numbers of rounds. It just depends on the company.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as 60. Well, you can put that back in. on AR-15s?
It does take a certain amount to pull the trigger on any firearm.
Do you know what it would be on an AR-15?
It's going to depend on the firearm.
And in State's Exhibit number 112, do you see the weapon that is depicted in State's Exhibit 112?
It's a little difficult to see it in that picture.
Is that better?
Not really.
State's Exhibit 113. Well, 113.
112, 113, and 128.
Pull up 113. Is that better, State's 113?
Yes.
In State's 113, is that weapon similar to what we've just been looking at, the AR-15 in State's Exhibit 60M?
So just based on a picture, whether it is a real firearm or not, I do not know the answer to that. However, the silhouette is resembling an AR-15 style firearm.
And how, in regards to chambering and rifling an AR-15, do you know the mechanics of that?
Yes.
What is a mischamber or a double feed?
So a double feed is caused when a cartridge is loaded into the chamber of the firearm and then the firearm tries to load another cartridge behind it.
And what would happen with that original cartridge that's inside the barrel when another one is trying to be placed in there?
So different things. It just depends on the circumstances of what is going on with the firearm itself, whether it's a magazine issue or a bolt issue. So can you?
So if someone already has a live round in there and they're trying to put another one in there, could it eject that one live round eject out of the gun, out of the weapon?
So typically you'll have one cartridge in the chamber of the firearm and then one trying to load behind it, but the bolt won't be able to close. So you'll have to eject the magazine and eject that second cartridge in order to be able to fire the firearm.
So does that mean you have to take it out, take the cartridge out?
Yeah, if there's two in the chamber and then one behind it, you'd have to take one out.
Are there things that can affect where that cartridge casing may be located after it has been fired? Does it remain in one spot, or could there be environmental things that affect how where it lands once the case is fired?
Oh, there can be many factors that can affect where cartridge cases land.
Could moving vehicles affect cartridge casing in the location that they're found in once the weapon has been fired?
If they're fired out of the moving vehicle,
No, if the moving vehicles go in the area where that cartridge casing has landed once it's been fired.
if the cartridge cases have been run over, then yes, that can affect where they are, for sure.
If individuals are sweeping after that shot is fired, could that affect the location of the cartridge casing?
Yes.
Could wind affect the location of the cartridge casing?
Wind,
Yeah.
it's a possibility.
People walking around in the area kicking things.
Yes, that's also a variable that can affect it.
Once a projectile is ejected from the weapon, what happens with that projectile once it hits the surface?
A bullet,
Yes,
once it exits the barrel.
once it exits the barrel and hits the surface.
So if it hits a surface that's harder than the metal it's made of, it's going to deform.
And when you say deform, what does that mean?
It's going to become misshapen.
Could it fragment? Can it break apart?
Yes, absolutely.
In this case, were you asked to examine specific evidence in regards to firearms or ballistics evidence?
Yes.
And did you complete a report
I did.
152 was already in evidence. 60, which contains 68, okay, and then 60.
Could you hear which ones?
Do you recognize states 60 and the contents of these? Do you recognize states 152?
Yes, I do.
And how are you able to recognize states 152?
This is the report that I developed on this case.
Have there been any deletions, additions, or alterations to that report that you created?
Not that I see.
I'd ask the states exhibit 152 be entered into evidence. John.
Any objection? No objection. 152. It's admitted.
So we'll start with states 60A through K, I believe.
Hold on 1 second. Can you hear the prosecutor, members of the jury? Okay, go ahead. I couldn't hear you for a second.
I'm sorry.
Okay, you're fine.
We'll start with state 60, I believe it's A through K.
Just let me look here.
And for your purposes, it would have been, do you mark it differently than what the state is marked with?
Yes, I do.
And for purposes of your reports, I believe it's 22.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to organize this. Yes, 22A.
And then what is states 22A?
22A is going to be the 7.556 by 45 millimeter cartridge cases.
And did you have a piece of evidence that you marked as your 22B?
I do.
And that would be state exhibit number 60H?
That's correct.
And what is your 22A state 60H?
My 22B state 60H is going to be 1223 cartridge case.
And your 22C, which would be state 60I?
That's correct.
And what is contained in state 60I?
That's 1 9mm cartridge case.
And how were you able to determine that state 60I is a 9mm cartridge case?
How was I able to determine it was a 9mm cartridge case? The head stamp says 9mm on it.
Are you able to determine what type of firearm that it was fired from?
I was not.
Why is that? Why are you unable to determine that?
So when we determine the manufacturer that a cartridge case was fired from, what we're looking at are called class characteristics. So those are markings on that cartridge case that tell us how that firearm was made. And different manufacturers will have different tells on their firearms so that we might be able to determine what type of firearm it was. These markings on this cartridge case were a little bit they weren't unique enough for me to determine which manufacturer they were from.
And that's that 9mm cartridge case?
Yes, that's correct.
And then states exhibit 60L.
Can you repeat that? Oh, yes.
And what number is that for you during your examination?
That's item number 23 for me.
And what is states exhibit 60L in your 23?
So that's a 38 class bullet.
And when you say a bullet, is that the same as a projectile?
Yes, that's correct.
Does that mean that has been fired?
Yes.
And how, when you were able to determine that it was a 9mm?
No, it's a 38 class.
And a .38 class, what types of weapons can a .38 class, I'm messing up the terminology, bullet be fired from?
That's all right. So 38 class is going to encompass a few different cartridges because the projectiles on those cartridges are about the same size. So it's a generic term for a certain number of cartridges. So 38 class is going to include 380, 9mm, 38 special, and 357 Magnum.
And those are all handguns that you described?
Yes.
And let's talk about states 60J through K. I believe that is your 22D.
22D. Yes.
And can you tell us what is in states 60J and K in your 22D?
Yes, so 22D is going to be two 223 cartridges. So that's two 223 unfired ammunition.
Is that what you would call like a live round?
Some would refer to it as a live round. Yes.
And were you able to make any determinations in regards to states 60J and K as far as, I believe you said it was a 223, is it the same manufacturer, same type?
So it's the same size cartridge, so it's a 223 cartridge. One is a Frontier manufacturer that made that cartridge, and the other is a Federal.
So one is a Frontier. Can you tell me which one of those was a Frontier?
Might need my scissors now. No, I think I'm okay. Thanks. It would be States Exhibit 60J. Is the Frontier. 60K is Federal.
And then we're going to move back to it. Your 22B with the state 60H.
Yes.
And can you tell us what is that in state 60H?
60H is the one 223 cartridge case.
And does that mean that when you say case, it has been fired?
Yes, correct.
And are you able to tell what type of firearm fired that 223 cartridge case?
That 223 cartridge case is because it's having been fired from an AR-15 style firearm.
And then states 60A through G. What is state 60A through G?
So that's 7 5.56 by 45 millimeter cartridge cases.
And tell us about your findings in regards to your examination of states 60A through G in regards to those 5.56 cartridge cases.
So those 7 5.56 cartridge cases were all fired from the same firearm, and they are consistent with being fired from a 5.56 by 45 AR-15 style firearm.
Can a 223 and a 5.56 be fired from the same weapon?
So typically you can fire a 223 in a 5.56 firearm. You don't necessarily want to fire a 5.56 in a 223 designated firearm.
Why is that?
The 5.56 is typically a higher pressured round. So if the firearm is only rated for 223, it may not be able to handle the pressure of a 5.56.
Tell us about the 5.56 higher pressure round. What does that mean?
So that means it's going to typically have a little bit more powder inside of the cartridge. Typically a 5.56 is going to be around 58,000 PSI, where a 223 is going to be around a 55,000 PSI. That's pounds per square inch of pressure.
Does that affect the accuracy, the speed, and the distance that once it's fired, that projectile or bullet will go?
It can be argued that a 5.56 has a higher velocity and more accurate than a 223, but that may be debatable.
But definitely more gunpowder,
Yes.
which creates more power.
Yes.
If those 7 5.56 cartridge casings that you examined and that 223 cartridge case that you examined, if they appeared through your examination to have been fired from the same weapon?
So the result for the 7.556 cartridge cases and the 1.223 cartridge case was inconclusive. So it was not determined whether they were fired from the same firearm or not.
Now, you said that it wouldn't be wise to fire a 5.56 from a weapon that was designed for a 2.23. What about firing a 2.23 in a weapon that was designed for a 5.56?
That would be just fine.
Is it unusual for individuals to load, in your knowledge as a firearms expert, different calibers of bullets into a weapon?
So because 5.56 and 2.23 are essentially the same cartridge, one is just a higher pressured round. From the naked eye, you can't tell the difference between the sizes of the cartridge themselves. So to see 2.23 and 5.56 intermingled is not unusual.
If you're pulling, as you're loading your rounds, if you're pulling them out of bags and not the boxes that they would normally come in, could that occur?
It could occur.
And we've talked about the casings and the cartridge casings and the cartridges that you examined. Did you have an opportunity to examine anything else in this case?
I examined the projectile from the medical examiner's office. Yes, I do.
And the process that you utilized to examine the projectile, can you kind of walk us through that process?
Yes. So when you receive a single projectile, there's no comparison to be made to other projectiles. And if you don't receive a firearm, you can't test fire that firearm to be able to compare to the test fires of that firearm. So what we are looking at on that projectile are just going to be those class characteristics, which are going to be those markings that kind of indicate to us what the design of that firearm is. So we're looking at caliber. We're looking at the rifling on the projectile itself, and that's going to give us some information, what direction that rifling is going, the width of those lands and grooves from that rifling. We can actually measure and put into a database that's going to kick us back manufacturers that manufacture their barrels to those specifications. And so we are able to provide a list of firearms potentially for manufacturers that fired that projectile.
And did you do that in this case? Did you compare that projectile that was received from the medical examiner's office that was removed from Secoriea Turner's body to the evidence that, the other evidence that we talked about today?
So I can't compare a projectile to cartridge cases. I can't determine if a projectile came from a cartridge case, and that's because when that projectile leaves the mouth of that cartridge case, all those markings are going to be covered up by the actual rifling of the barrel. So we don't do that. However, I was able to give a type of firearm in which that projectile was fired from.
Were you able to get a caliber?
I was able.
Projectile? And what was that caliber?
The caliber was 5.56.
And were you able to get a type of weapon that it could have been fired from?
Yes, it was an AR-15 style firearm.
And is that similar to the AR-15 style rifle that those 7.556, let me say shell casings because I started confusing myself, the cartridge cases came from?
Yes, that is the same style firearm.
Now, you talked about earlier, if you had a firearm to compare those shell casings against, that you could utilize that to analyze what would you utilize it for?
So if I received a firearm that exhibited the same class characteristics, so it's a 5.56 firearm, it's an AR-15, then I would test fire that firearm and compare it to the cartridge cases and to the projectile.
And could you use that firearm to determine whether or not it is the same or matches the shell casings that you had?
Potentially, yes.
Could you also, if you got a firearm, could you also utilize that, analyze that firearm and those shell casings to eliminate it as being the weapon that fired those shell casings?
Again, it's a possibility.
Did you receive a firearm in this case to do any of that type of
I did not.
Cross-examination?
Good afternoon.
My name is Sean Hoover, and I represent Julian Conley. I have some questions for you. I've tried to make this as succinct as possible. If I ask you a question that just sounds weird, please let me know so I can rephrase it, okay? Okay. Now, you said this was, let me back up. You testified with the state about an AR-15 operating system. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just so we're clear, you're not talking about one specific gun. You're talking about an operating system that's literally on like 7 or 8 different types of weapons, correct?
Yes, it's on a lot of firearms.
As an example, Colt makes an AR-15 style rifle. Is that correct?
Yes, they do.
Smith & Wesson makes an AR-15 type rifle, correct?
Yes, they do.
Heckler Koch makes an AR-15 style rifle, correct?
Yes, Heckler Koch does.
Sig Sauer makes an AR-15 style rifle, correct?
They do.
Ruger makes an AR-15 style rifle, correct?
They do.
LWRC makes an AR-15 style rifle, correct?
Yes, they do.
And Diamondback makes an AR-15 style rifle. Is that correct?
They do.
Okay. So when you're saying that it's an AR-15 style rifle, you're not saying it's a particular rifle. You're saying it's a type of operating system that multiple manufacturers make. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a lot like saying an SUV for cars.
Thank you. And the weapon, I don't even, oh, right there in front of me. The weapon that you showed the jury, that's not, you're not saying that any of these cartridges, any of these bullets, any of those, the ballistics came from that particular weapon, correct?
No, I'm not.
In fact, based off of your analysis of the ballistics in this case, you don't know which manufacturer actually created the gun that fired the weapons that killed the young girl, do you?
That's correct. I do not know the manufacturer.
And I saw that you had, just like me, you had a little trouble looking at the gun in the pictures the state put up because they're blurry. You can't even tell the jury that the gun that the state had you display in front of them is the same gun that we saw in the pictures, can you?
Oh, no, I cannot.
All right, so let's talk about characteristics a little bit. There are class characteristics, subclass characteristics, and individualized characteristics, correct?
That's correct.
All right, could you explain to the jury what class characteristics are?
Yes, absolutely. So class characteristics, as we talked about before, are our broadest category of characteristics. So those, again, are going to be those markings that are indicative of the design of the firearm. So caliber, obviously, being one. The rifling on a bullet would be another. Firing pin impression shape is another class characteristic. That's going to tell us how that gun was made.
And if you had enough class characteristics, if you found enough class characteristics, are you able to tell what particular manufacturer built or made the gun that was used?
So it depends on the class characteristics. So some manufacturers have unique enough characteristics that we can say, okay, this cartridge case was fired from this manufacturer, but that is not always the case.
And in this particular case, this part of your investigation, you do not have enough class characteristics to determine the actual manufacturer that created the gun, correct?
Yes, so I can't tell the manufacturer of the firearm. I can just tell the operating system of the firearm.
Okay. And could you please tell the jury what subclass characteristics are?
Yes, so after class characteristics, if our class characteristics are agreeing, the next markings that we're looking at are our smaller group called subclass characteristics. Now, subclass characteristics are markings that are formed during the manufacture of a firearm, and they can be common across a small subset of firearms that are manufactured around the same time period. So if the same tool is cutting the same firearm piece, then those markings can carry over and they can be common across a small group of firearms before that tool has changed to create those unique markings.
And finally, the individualized characteristics. Can you explain that to the jury, please?
Yes, so we go from class characteristics to subclass characteristics to finally the bread and butter of what we do as firearms examiners, which are those individual characteristics. Those individual characteristics are also incidental to the manufacture of the firearm. They are unique to that firearm, but they're also incidental to the wear and tear of that particular firearm. So those are the markings that we're going to use to make our determinations.
Now, if I heard you correctly, the analysis you conducted, looking at the class characteristics, sub-characteristics, and individualized characteristics, the conclusion you came up with was inconclusive.
So for the 7 5.56 cartridge cases, those were identified as having been fired from the same firearm. Now, that group to the 1 223 cartridge case was inconclusive.
So, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the state talked a lot about how a certain weapon can fire both the 5.56 and the 223, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But based off of your expert analysis on all of this, you can't tell the jury that you know for a fact that one weapon fired the 5.56 rounds that you analyzed and the 223, can you?
That's correct. I can't.
So you can't tell this jury that only one weapon fired into that vehicle on the night of the shooting, can you?
Based on the inconclusive result to that 1 223 cartridge case, because there wasn't enough information, I cannot say that it was one firearm.
And I have to ask this because the state asked you this. Before you received everything and started processing the information, were you ever notified that there were people sweeping up cartridge casings that you couldn't get?
No.
Were you ever notified that there were vehicles driving over cartridge casings that were too damaged, so they just didn't send them to you?
I'm not aware of that.
And were you ever notified that people were like walking around, I guess, kicking casings that we couldn't get to you, or they couldn't get to you?
I wouldn't know the circumstances of where the cartridge cases were picked up.
That's all the questions I have for you. Thank you.
So what you were able to determine, what caliber was the projectile that was removed from Secoriea Turner's body?
It was a 5.56 projectile.
And those 7 shell casings that came from the crime scene eventually, what caliber were those?
The 7 cartridge cases that I did together were also 5.56 by 45 millimeter cartridge cases.
And were they all shot from the same firearm based on your detailed analysis of those cartridge casings?
Those 7 were, yes.
And you can only analyze what you get to determine whether or not the gun matches, the shell casings matches, and the bullet or projectile match, correct?
I can only analyze what I have.
Did you get a gun to analyze in this case to eliminate it as being the murder weapon?
I did not receive a firearm.
Thank you.
Okay, can she be excused?
Yes, Your Honor, she may.
All right, thank you for joining us. We can get out of here. Okay, are we ready for the next witness, or do we need to take up some matters? Mr. Hoover? Okay. All right, will you all step out for a few minutes?
All right, to the jury.